It's a rainy day outside. And we're all cuddled up. See how blessed we are? We have a house to live in, safe underneath a roof. All right, let's see here. Theology of the Body by Pope St. John Paul II. Human Love in the Divine Plan. General audience, May 23rd, 1984. Reflections on the Song of Songs. I was 4 years old. No, I was 3 years old. 1978, 1984. Five years old. During the Holy Year, I postponed the treatment of the theme of human love in the divine plan. I would now like to conclude that topic with some considerations, especially about the teaching of Humanae Vitae, premising some reflections on the Song of Songs and the Book of Tobit. It seems to me that what I intend to explain in the coming weeks constitutes the crowning of what I have illustrated. The theme of marital love, which unites man and woman, in a certain sense connects this part of the Bible with the whole tradition of the great analogy. Through the writings of the prophets, this flows into the New Testament, and especially into Ephesians 5:21-33. I interrupted the explanation of this at the beginning of the Holy Year. The Song of Songs has become the object of many exegetical studies, commentaries, and hypotheses. With regard to its content, apparently profane, the positions have varied. On the one hand, its reading has often been discouraged, and on the other, it has been the source from which the greatest mystical writers have drawn. The verses of the Song of Songs have been inserted into the Church's liturgy, although the analysis of the text of this book obliges us to situate its content outside the sphere of the great prophetic analogy. It is not possible to detach it from the reality of the original sacrament. It is not possible to reread it except along the lines of what is written in the first chapters of Genesis, as a testimony of the beginning. That beginning which Christ referred to in his decisive conversation with the Pharisees. Matthew chapter 19, verse 4. The Song of Songs is certainly found in the wake of that sacrament, in which, through the language of the body, the visible sign of man and woman's participation in the covenant of grace and love offered by God to man is constituted. The Song of Songs demonstrates the richness of this language, whose first expression is already found in Genesis chapter 2, verse 23 to 25. Indeed, the first verses of the Song of Songs leads us immediately into the atmosphere of the whole poem, in which the groom and the bride seem to move in the circle traced by the irradiation of love. The words, movements, and gestures of the spouses correspond to the interior movement of their hearts. It is possible to understand the language of the body only through the prism of this movement. In that language there comes to pass that discovery which the first man expressed in front of her, who had been created as helper like himself. Genesis 2:20-23. As the biblical text reports, she had been taken from one of his ribs. Rib seems to also indicate the heart. This discovery, already analyzed on the basis of Genesis 2 and the Song of Songs, is invested with all the richness of the language of human love. What was expressed in the second chapter of Genesis, verse 23 to 25, in just a few simple and essential words, is developed here in a full dialogue, or rather in a duet, in which the groom's words are interwoven with the bride's, and they complement each other. On seeing the woman created by God, man's first words express wonder and admiration, even more the sense of fascination. Genesis 2:23. A similar fascination, which is wonder and admiration, runs in fuller form through the verses of the Song of Songs. It runs in a peaceful and homogeneous wave from the beginning to the end of the poem. Even a summary analysis of the text of the Song of Songs allows the language of the body to be heard expressing itself in that mutual fascination. The point of departure as well as the point of arrival for this fascination, mutual wonder and admiration, are in fact the bride's femininity and the groom's masculinity. In the direct experience of their visibility, the words of love uttered by both of them are therefore concentrated on the body, not only because in itself it constitutes the source of the mutual fascination, but it is also, and above all, because on the body there lingers directly and immediately that attraction toward the other person, toward the I, female or male, which in the interior impulse of the heart generates love. In addition, love unleashes a special experience of the beautiful, which focuses on what is visible, but at the same time involves the entire person. The experience of beauty gave rise to mutual satisfaction. O most beautiful among women, Song 1:8. The groom says, and the bride's words echo back to him, I am dark but lovely, O daughters of Jerusalem, Song 1:5. The words of the spellbound man are repeated continually. They return in all 5 stanzas of the poem, and they are echoed in similar expressions of the bride's. It is a question here at metaphors that may surprise us today. Many of them were borrowed from the life of shepherds. Others seem to indicate the royal status of a groom. The analysis of that poetic language is left to the experts. The very fact of adopting the metaphor shows how much, in our case, The language of the body seeks support and corroboration in the whole visible world. This is without doubt a language that is reread at one and the same time with the heart and with the eyes of the groom, in the act of special concentration on the whole female eye of the bride. This eye speaks to him through every feminine trait, giving rise to that state of mind that can be defined as fascination, enchantment. This female eye is expressed almost without words. Nevertheless, the language of the body expressed wordlessly, finds a rich echo in the groom's words, in his speaking that is full of poetic transport and metaphors, which attest to the experience of beauty, a love of satisfaction. If the metaphors in the Song of Songs seek an analogy for this beauty in the various things of the visible world, in this world which is the groom's own world, at the same time they seem to indicate the insufficiency of each of these things in particular. You are all beautiful, my beloved, and there is no blemish in you. Song 4:7. The groom ends this song with this saying, leaving all the metaphors in order to address himself to that soul won through, which the language of the body seems to express, what is more proper to femininity and the whole of the person. We will continue the analysis of the Song of Songs at the next general audience. His Holiness Pope St. John Paul II. Truth and freedom, the foundation of true love. We resume our analysis of the Song of Songs with the purpose of understanding in a more adequate and exhaustive way the sacramental sign of marriage. This is manifested by the language of the body, a singular language of love originating in the heart, at a certain point expressing a particular experience of values that shines upon everything that relates to the person he loves. The groom says, "You have ravished my heart, my sister, my bride. You have ravished my heart with one glance of your eyes, with one bead of your necklace. How sweet are your caresses, my sweet, my sister, my bride." Psalm 4:9-10. From these words emerges what is of essential importance for the theology of the body, and in this case for the theology of the sacramental sign of marriage, to know who the female you is for the male I, and vice versa. The groom in the Song of Songs exclaims, "You are all beautiful, my beloved," Psalm 4:7, and calls her my sister, my bride. He does not call her by her name, but he uses expressions that say more. Under a certain aspect, compared with the name beloved, the name sister that is used for the bride seems to be more eloquent and rooted in the sum total of the Song of Songs, which illustrates how love reveals the other person. The term beloved indicates what is always essential for love, which puts the second eye beside one's own eye. Friendship, love of friendship, amor amicitiae, signifies in the Song of Songs a particular approach felt and experienced as an interiorly unifying power. The fact that in this approach that female eye is revealed for her groom as sister, and that precisely as both sister and bride, has a special eloquence. The expression sister speaks of the union in mankind, at the same time of her difference in feminine originality. This is not only with regard to sex, but to the very way of being person, which means both being subject and being in relationship. The term sister seems to express in a more simple way the subjectivity of the female I in personal relationship with the man, that is, in the openness of him towards others who are understood and perceived as brothers. The sister, in a certain sense, helps man to identify himself and conceive of himself in this way, constituting for him a kind of challenge in this direction. The groom in the Song of Songs accepts the challenge and seeks the common past, as though he and his woman were descended from the same family circle, as though from infancy they were united by memories of a common home. So they mutually feel as close as brother and sister, who owe their existence to the same mother. From this, a specific sense of common belonging follows. The fact that they feel like brother and sister allows them to live their mutual closeness in security, and to manifest it, finding support in that, and not fearing the unfair judgment of other men. Through the name sister, the groom's words tend to reproduce, I would say, the history of the femininity of the person loved. They see her still in the time of girlhood, and they embrace her entire eye, soul, and body with a disinterested tenderness. Hence that peace arises which the bride speaks of. This is the peace of the body, which in appearance resembles sleep. Do not arouse, do not stir up love before its own time. This is above all the peace of the encounter in mankind as the image of God, and the encounter by means of a reciprocal and disinterested gift. So am I in your eyes like one who has found peace? Song 8:10. In relation to the preceding plot, which could be called a fraternal plot, another plot emerges in the loving duet of the Song of Songs, another substratum of the content. We can examine it by starting from certain sayings that seem to have a key significance in the poem. This plot never emerges explicitly, but through the whole composition, and is expressly manifested only in a few passages. So the groom says, "You are an enclosed garden, my sister, my bride, an enclosed garden, a fountain sealed." Song 4:12. The metaphors just read, an enclosed garden, a fountain sealed, reveal the presence of another vision of the same female eye, master of her own mystery. We can say that both metaphors express the personal dignity of the woman, who as a spiritual subject is in possession, and can decide not only on the metaphysical depth, but also on this essential truth and authenticity of the gift of herself, inclined to that union which Genesis speaks of. The language of metaphors, poetic language, seems to be in this sphere especially appropriate and precise. The sister bride is for the man the master of her own mystery, as a garden enclosed and a fountain sealed. The language of the body, reread in truths, keeps pace with the discovery of the interior inviolability of the person. At the same time, this discovery expresses the authentic depth of the mutual belonging of the spouses who are aware of belonging to each other, of being destined for each other. My lover belongs to me, and I to him. Song 216, 6:3. This awareness of mutual belonging resounds especially on the lips of the bride. In a certain sense, with these words, she responds to the groom's words, with which he acknowledged her as the master of her own mystery. When the bride says, "My lover belongs to me," she means at the same time, "It is he to whom I entrust myself." Therefore she says, "And I to him." Song 216. The words "to me" and "to him" affirm here the whole depth of that entrustment, which corresponds to the interior truth of the person. It likewise corresponds to the nuptial significance of femininity, in relation to the male I, that is, to the language of the body, reread in the truth of personal dignity. The groom states this truth with the metaphors of the garden enclosed and the fountain sealed. The bride answers him with the words of the gift, that is, the entrustment of herself. As master of her own choice, she says, I belong to my lover. The Song of Songs subtly reveals the interior truth of this response. The freedom of the gift is the response to the deep awareness of the gift expressed by the groom's words. Through this truth and freedom that love is built up, which we must affirm is authentic love. Pope St. John Paul II, General Audience of May 30th, 1984. Love is ever seeking and never satisfied. Today we will reflect again on the Song of Songs, with the aim of better understanding the sacramental sign of marriage. The truth about love, proclaimed by the Song of Songs, cannot be separated from the language of the body. The truth about love enables the same language of the body to be reread in truth. This is also the truth about the progressive approach of the spouses, which increases through love. The nearness means also the initiation into the mystery of the person, without, however, implying its violation. Psalm 1, 13-14, 16. The truth about the increasing nearness of the spouses through love is developed in the subjective dimension of the heart, of affection and sentiment. This dimension allows one to discover in itself the other as a gift, and in a certain sense to taste it in itself. Song 2, 3-6. Through the nearness, the groom more fully lives the experience of that gift, which on the part of the female I is united with the spousal expression and meaning of the body. The man's words, Song 7, 1-8, do not only contain a poetic description of his beloved, of her feminine beauty, on which his senses dwell, but they speak of the gift and the self-giving of the person. The bride knows that the groom's longing is for her, and she goes to meet him with the quickness of the gift of herself. Song 7, 9-13. Because the love that unites them is at one and the same time of a spiritual and essential nature, it is also on the basis of this love that the rereading of the significance of the body in the truth comes to pass, since the man and woman must together constitute that sign of the mutual gift of self, which puts the seal on their whole life. In the Song of Songs, the language of the body becomes a part of the single process of the mutual attraction of the man and woman. This attraction is expressed in the frequent refrains that speak of the search that is full of nostalgia, of affectionate solicitude, Song 2:7, and of the spouse's mutual rediscovery, Song 5:2. This brings them joy and calm, and seems to lead them to a continual search. One has the impression that in meeting each other, in reaching each other, in experiencing one's nearness, they ceaselessly continue to tend towards something. They yield to the call of something that dominates the content of the moment and surpasses the limits of the eros, limits that are reread in the words of the mutual language of the body. Song 1, 7-8, 2:17. This search has its interior dimension. The heart is awake, even in sleep. This aspiration, born of love on the basis of the language of the body, is a search for integral beauty. for purity that is free of all stain. It is a search for perfection that contains, I would say, the synthesis of human beauty, beauty of soul and body. In the Song of Songs, the human eros reveals the countenance of love, ever in search and, as it were, never satisfied. The echo of this restlessness runs through the strophes of the poem. I opened to my lover, but my lover had departed, gone. I sought him, but I did not find him. I called to him, but he did not answer me. Psalm 5:6. I adjure you, daughters of Jerusalem, if you find my lover, what shall you tell him? That I am faint with love. Psalm 5:8. So then some strophes of the Song of Songs present the eros as the form of human love, in which the energies of desire are at work, and them the awareness or the subjective certainty of the mutual, faithful, and exclusive belonging is rooted. At the same time, however, many other strophes of the poem lead us to reflect on the cause of the search, and the restlessness that accompanies the awareness of belonging to each other. Is this restlessness also part of the nature of the eros? If it were, this restlessness would indicate also the need for self-control. The truth about love is expressed in the awareness of mutual belonging, the fruit of the aspiration and search for each other, and in the need for the aspiration and the search, the outcome of mutual belonging. The interior necessity, this dynamic of love, indirectly reveals the near impossibility of one person's being appropriated and mastered by the other. The person is someone who surpasses all measures of appropriation and domination, of possession and gratification, which emerge from the same language of the body. If the groom and the bride reread this language and the full truth about the person and about love, they arrive at the ever deeper conviction that the fullness of their belonging constitutes that mutual gift, in which love is revealed as stern as death. That is, it goes to the furthest limits of the language of the body, in order to exceed them. The truth about interior love and the truth about the mutual gift, in a certain sense, continually call the groom and the bride, through the means of expressing the mutual belonging, and even by breaking away from those means, to arrive at what constitutes the very nucleus of the gift from person to person. Following the paths of the words marked out by the strophes of the Song of Songs, it seems that we are therefore approaching the dimension in which the eros seeks to be integrated, through still another truth about love. Centuries later, in the light of the death and resurrection of Christ, Paul of Tarsus will proclaim this truth in the words of 1 Corinthians. Love is patient, love is kind, love is not jealous, it does not put on airs, it is not snobbish, love is never rude, it is not self-seeking, it is not prone to anger, neither does it brood over injuries. Love does not rejoice in what is wrong, but rejoices with the truth. There is no limit to love's forbearance, to its trust, its hope, its power to endure. Love never fails. 1 Corinthians 13:4-8. Is the truth about love expressed in the strophes of the Song of Songs confirmed in the light of these words of Paul? In the Song of Songs we read as an example of love that its jealousy is relentless as the netherworld. Psalm 8:6. In the Pauline letter we read that love is not jealous. What relationship do both of these expressions above love have? What relationship does the love that is stern as death, according to the Song of Songs, have with the love that never fails, according to the Pauline letter? We will not multiply these questions. We will not open the comparative analysis. Nevertheless, it seems that love opens up before us here in two perspectives, It is as though that in which the human eros closes its horizon is still opened, through Paul's words, to another horizon of love that speaks another language, the love that seems to emerge from another dimension of the person, and which calls, invites to another communion. This love has been called agape, and agape brings the eros to completion by purifying it. So we have concluded these brief meditations on the Song of Songs, intended to further examine the theme of the language of the body. In this framework, the Song of Songs has a totally singular meaning. Pope St. John Paul II, General Audience of June 6, 1984. When a man says you, is he saying there's another person in which you are not? Or when he says you, is he saying only you? Because there's another who wants to know if it is only you? When a man says you, is he saying it like I'm just stuck with you? No way, Jose. How many yous are there? You? No. What if I say I am a woman? I have straight A's. I know only one. I love you. How the woman says I tells the man something about her mystery. How the man says you either answers a question or a doubt. And until this I comes forth so satisfied when he says you, the question ends.